Good morning, everybody. First of all, let me just thank 40 Plus for having me this morning. I'm really looking forward to a really good relationship with them. They've been nothing but spectacular over the past few months. So today, I hope everybody is feeling great and ready to have a little fun while we are learning something new. In this workshop, you'll learn a few things. You'll learn a couple simple coaching techniques to enhance your job interviews, and they'll also help you to succeed in work and in your life. So one of the things that I see that we all have in common is that we are all on some sort of journey. So today we're going to do several things. I'm going to share a bit about my own personal journey. I'm going to clarify what coaching is and how it can help in your job search. I'm going to talk to you about two simple coaching techniques and share some examples. And I'm going to show you how to use these techniques so that they can also be used to enhance your job interview skills as well as your personal relationships. Plus, we're going to have a little bit of fun. I've got some interesting diversions planned to demonstrate my points so that I'm not just talking at you. And I want to hear from you through the polls and the Q&As. Finally, if you're here at the end, and I really hope that you are, I have a couple free giveaways that I guarantee you don't want to miss. Throughout our time together this morning, we'll break for some Q&As. If you wiggle your mouse on the screen, you'll see at the bottom a place for a chat. Enter your questions there. I'll also leave time at the end of this presentation and of this discussion for some additional questions. So let's start by sharing a bit of my story, because I believe, like you, I'm on a journey. I've got more than 20 years of professional experience and success as a communication strategist and manager. Like some of you, I had a thriving career as a professional. I led teams, was well respected in my organization among my peers. I traveled, sometimes just a little bit too much, but really I enjoyed what I was doing and how I was bringing value to my organization, to my team and my colleagues and peers. But then, and unexpectedly, I lost my position and found myself in the open job market with proven skills and a successful track record. Not having the benefit of the skills building and the forum that 40 Plus offers, I went about it on my own and using tools that we hear about the most. I redid my resume on my own, using some of the job search filtering tactics that many professionals recommend. I used Indeed, I used Nonprofit Times, I used DC Networks, all of those. I also talked with friends, I talked with headhunters and search firms. I used social media networking platforms like LinkedIn. And I had some success getting to the interview, sometimes even to the final round. I was tested, sometimes very extensively. I had to respond to scenarios. I did mock media interviews. Once I was even challenged to conceive a crisis communications framework and a plan. In many cases, I made it to the final two interview candidates, but was not the chosen candidate. This told me that I had all the right skills. I was nailing the interview, but I was still not selected. So, does any of this sound familiar? Tell me in the chat if you've had similar types of experiences. Great. Yeah, I definitely feel you. This is not at all unfamiliar. I was really struggling as I was going through this whole process too. And I definitely understand. It's very frustrating. So through all of that, I took a huge, I took a huge hit to my personal and professional self-confidence. And after a long period of time trying unsuccessfully and very often, very frustratingly, to find a new position that leveraged my expertise, I made the personal decision to pivot. A really good friend of mine suggested getting a coach, which I did. And she challenged me to assess my skills and my strengths and weaknesses. She also challenged me to help me figure out who I was as a person and a professional, and what were my real passions and what I wanted to do with all of that stuff. She pushed me a lot, but it was incredibly helpful and clarifying. And it convinced me to open my own consultancy. Sometime later, she came back to check in on me and really convinced me to pursue coaching to help others who found themselves in life's inevitably pivotal moments and who were looking for ways to become their best selves. So I trained. She became my official mentor. And let me just say, by the way, that when she came back to me and suggested that I become a coach, I was like, no, I'm a consultant. You know, I do consulting. I'm a communications person. And you know what she said to me? She said, look, you already have the skills. You're already doing this informally. So let's just train you up a little bit and formalize what you already know and what you're already giving to folks. And so for me, the result was to become a consultant and a coach. For you, it could be a new position, it could be a very different profession, or it could be pursuing a brand new passion. So now, as a CTA trained coach, I work with individuals, small businesses, and business owners, especially business owners who are pivoting in the midst of this pandemic period. And I help them to build awareness, drive business, and improve market share. And I also work with individual clients who, like me, want to enjoy a more fulfilling life. So here I am today, owner of Willicop Consulting and Coaching, to share some simple skills that I know will make a difference in your life and the lives of others and help you in your interviews. So how many of you have asked yourselves about your journey over the past few months? What about the past quarter? And how about the past week? And would you benefit from a few more skills to help you get there just a little bit faster? These are questions we ask ourselves all the time. Sometimes we are a little bit more focused on that question, but I believe that question is always looming in the back of our minds. So there are lots of ways people look at coaching. Here is one quirky approach in a progressive ad.
If you printed out directions to get here today, you're in the right place. My seminars are a great tool to help young homeowners who are turning into their parents. Now remember, they're not programs, they're TV shows. You woke up early, no one cares. Yes?
So I was using something called Home Quote Explorer from Progressive to easily compare home insurance rates. Was I hashtagging?
Progressive can't help you from becoming your parents, but we can help you compare rates on home insurance with Home Quote Explorer.
Guess what? The waiter doesn't need to know your name.
So this Progressive insurance ad series just cracks me up. The whole unbecoming your parents coaching niche is really funny. But it does have some of the elements of truth to it. So there are lots of ideas out there about what coaching really is. So let's just get really clear on what coaching really is. Coaches are experts in coaching the journey forward, working with clients who feel a barrier between themselves and a goal. They often feel blocked and need a thinking and accountability partner to break through the barrier to create a new future of their own design. As coaches, we challenge our clients to think differently about their own personal and professional growth, sometimes their business growth. We don't look back, we start with now, guiding clients through actions to uncover their own wisdom and their own solutions, like a career change or building a better work-life balance or positioning themselves in their career advancement. We don't solve problems. We ask impactful questions to help clients think differently. Most of the work, however, is in fact done between the sessions. And most often, that's where the breakthroughs really occur. For us, it's about supporting others as they seek the change they see for themselves. It focuses on barriers, seeing possibilities, creating a plan to get there, and building an accountability to help clients get to where they want to be, but faster. We're not problem solvers. We are not therapists. The solutions themselves are just a byproduct. In short, coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. So the bottom line here is this: coaching leads to self-discovery, and self-discovery leads to solutions. There are many skills that professional coaches use to work successfully with clients. Some of those simple skills, I believe, can be very useful in your job search, in your current positions, and in your life. These are very important skills. I'd like to talk about what they are and show you how and when they can be useful. We all know that listening and being heard are vital. Here are two thoughts that I personally hold dear. When we listen with curiosity, we don't listen with the intent to reply. We listen for what's behind the words. The most basic of all human needs is the need to understand and to be understood. The best way to understand people is to listen to them. Those are quotes that can be used in coaching as well as in life. We hear this term authentic or active listening a lot. Here's a definition that I like to use. Authentic listening is a skill that requires patience and concentration. Authentic listening occurs when you respond to the speaker in ways that indicate to him or her that you care about what he or she is saying, and if you give every opportunity to allow him or her to complete their train of thought. That's from Thrive Business, and it's a very, very good publication that I try to follow from time to time. Let's take a moment and look at a few situations. So I'm going to play 4 scenarios that demonstrate different ways of listening. Between each, use the chat to share your thoughts. But let me just set this up for a minute. So we've got 2 people. We've got Alice and we have Mike. They're co-workers. Mike has some great news to share. And let's just see how Alice responds. And she's going to respond in several different ways. And I'm going to, between each one, get your feedback on it. So why don't we start with the first one?
Hey, Alice.
Hey.
You remember that promotion I was hoping to get?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I got the call and they gave it to me.
That is so great.
Yeah, it starts next week, new office and everything.
Very cool, Mike.
All right, well, I'll talk to you later, I guess.
Yeah.
Which type of...
Okay, so who'd like to have Alice as a coworker? She's not necessarily the person you want as a mainstay in your support system, is she? All right, let's look at another way of responding.
Hey, Alice.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
I am feeling great. You'll never guess what just happened to me.
What's that?
I got the promotion I was hoping to get.
Oh my God, that's fabulous. Oh, that reminds me, I just closed on the house I was buying.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
I know, I can't wait. I even have new furniture picked out and everything.
All right, well, that's great. Great. I gotta get going.
All right, I'll see you later.
Okay, again, Alice, what a wonderful coworker, huh? She clearly is hearing him, but she's not really hearing him here. Let's look at the third scenario.
Hey, Alice.
Hey, Mike, what's going on?
I'm feeling great. You'll never guess what just happened to me.
What's that?
You remember that promotion I was hoping to get?
Yeah.
I got the call and I got it.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Yes. I'm so ready for this.
Are you sure about that? I mean, this is going to be a really big change and a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, but it's nothing I can't handle.
You do understand this means you will have all the crap put onto you from corporate.
Well, yeah, it comes with the territory. Besides, I got the new office, big raise. I think it's worth it.
Big raise? So what? I mean, you're gonna be working 15-hour days and weekends.
Well,
Have you talked to Kathy? Is she okay with you being gone so much?
I hadn't thought of that. But I'm sure she'll be fine.
Will it be fine when you're leaving every other week for a business trip?
Okay, I hadn't considered that either. I need to rethink this.
Yeah, you should do that.
Okay, Alice. All right. Isn't Alice really the one you'd like to have in your corner? I mean, if you had any anxiety at all about the challenges of this new opportunity, really, Alice is the one you want to turn to quell some of that. She's really excited about this guy who's supposed to be her longtime coworker in the office. So let's just see if Alice could respond to this just a little bit different. No, seriously, she's not very supportive of Mike's achievement, that's for sure.
Hey, Alice.
Hey, Mike, what's going on?
I am feeling great. You'll never guess what just happened to me.
What's that?
I got that promotion I was hoping for.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, that is so exciting! Congratulations!
Thank you.
So when do you start?
First thing Monday. Yeah, I got some things to tie up around here, but it's official.
Very cool. So you get a new office and everything.
Yeah, I'm moving up to the 3rd floor. Getting out of this cubicle maze finally.
Oh, aren't you the lucky one? Well, have you told Kathy yet?
Yeah, she's super excited. She wants to come and decorate my office.
You should let her. I know she has a great eye for that sort of thing. Are you guys gonna celebrate?
Of course. I'm gonna take her out to Casa Bella.
Oh.
Gonna make a night of it.
Very fancy. Well, I know she will just love it. Oh, and you should let her know. Good colors for the office. Purple polka dots.
I don't know about that.
Now, who wouldn't want this Alice as a colleague? She's really paying attention to him. She's definitely into whatever his success is. She's rooting for it, and she absolutely supports him in everything. So it's clear that when Alice listened actively and authentically, it completely changed the dynamic of the conversation and maybe even their relationship, even though it's possible that they might not be working closely together anymore. So I believe that in a job interview or discussion, listening actively and authentically can shift the dynamic of the conversation and the brief relationship that you've established with the interviewer. Let's take a look now at how this can happen. Here's a simulation of a job interview with the candidate and the interviewer. The interviewer will make the same remark twice. Observe the different answers and the interviewer's reaction. Uh-oh.
So Millree, we've been trying to fill this position for some time. We're just looking for the right person.
Well, my experience and qualifications should make me the ideal candidate for you.
Well, I hope so. So Millree, we have been trying to fill this position for some time. We're just looking for the right person.
Oh, that's tough. Filling vacant positions is a big strain on any organization. It must be making it very hard on the team that's trying to cover the void while still getting its work done.
Yeah.
I hope that by the end of this conversation, you will see that my expertise and my experience will be just the right fit for you.
Well, I hope so.
Okay, so in this first example, Millree, moi, is just not listening to the difficult position the employer is facing. He just wants to jump in immediately and make the case for himself. Really, for Millree, it's all about him in this interview. But in the second example, Millree is just not hearing, he's just not hearing the comment. He's feeling the anguish and the strain of the interviewer, and he acknowledges it, and then he responds. Okay, so there are lots of ways of using active listening skills in an interview. So here are 3 ways. There's brief affirmation, in which case you might say, yeah, I really understand. I would love to be able to help resolve this issue. There's mentioning similar situations. For example, in a previous job, I faced something very similar, and I definitely understand how this works or how it happens, or understand the challenge. Or you can summarize the question by saying something like, yeah, so what I hear you saying is blah, blah, blah. Okay, now, once you begin listening authentically or actively, you can engage the interviewer, stepping into his or her shoes, and can now offer new possibilities. Equally valuable, I believe, you give the interviewer a sense of how you might fit on the team. Okay, next, let's talk about how authentic listening can lead to the second vital coaching skill, and that's asking impactful questions. So, what are some of the characteristics of impactful questions? Impactful questions go all the way. These are questions that ask someone to actually think. We move beyond these transactional types of conversations to a much deeper level that causes both you and me to think more deeply about an issue, because the question itself has impact. You communicate with influence when you ask impactful questions at the right time. Asking impactful questions is just one of the tools we coaches use to empower our clients and shift them into problem solvers. Once you practice them, you'll begin to see how they can be helpful in so many other life and work situations. You can also use them effectively in your job search, in informational interviews, as well as in the formal interview itself. There are many ways to ask impactful questions, and here are a few that may help guide you. For example, how will this choice or action help you move forward? What one thing could you do that would make the biggest difference here? What is the best outcome you imagine? And how can you improve the situation? In a job interview, for example, you might say, on a scale of 0 to 10, how can this new staff position get you closer to improving the productivity of your team? Those are the types of questions that will get a person to get past the transactional piece and exchange in a regular conversation and actually help you to get them to think a little bit more deeply. Okay, so now let's go back to Millree in this job interview, and let's see how that can make a difference.
We've had some internal staffing challenges on that team. The previous manager had a difficult time with interesting personalities and unclear job descriptions. It made it hard to sustain forward momentum across the entire organization.
Why has it been so difficult? I've managed many teams in the past, and I've always had great success.
Okay.
So, in this situation, Millree, being quite the knucklehead, is literally, I believe, putting the interviewer in a defensive position by asking what I call the dismissive why. So sometimes asking a why question in a dismissive way shuts down the interview when you really want to open the interview up and you want to be more engaging, and you also want to create opportunities to show more of yourself. When used at the wrong time, this kind of question also inherently puts the interviewer on defense. Let's look at another way of responding to that particular comment.
We've had some internal staffing challenges on that team. The previous manager had a difficult time with interesting personalities and unclear job description. It made it hard to sustain forward momentum throughout the entire organization.
Well, that's a challenge that many organizations and managers face. Group dynamics are such an important part of leadership.
Yeah.
How do you think the way this position is currently configured will help address some of those historic challenges, the ones that you faced in the past? For example, if you could paint the picture you wanted, how would success look 2 years or a year from now?
Good question.
In this situation, Millree is empathizing with the interviewer and is posing questions that may get her to think a bit more. It also demonstrates that he's listening, that he's engaged, and is a thoughtful candidate. What is the difference between authentic listening and empathy? They are essentially the same, and they require the same sorts of skills. So when you're listening authentically, you're actually putting yourself in the shoes of the person that you are talking with. And in many ways, that's empathetic, but it's also just being your natural self and not superimposing any of your thoughts prior to the conversation or after it. I see that Sally is asking, to drive productivity, is that why people are not listening actively? Because they are multitasking. Sometimes people are multitasking, but I think if you really want to have an authentic conversation, you should try to figure out a way to be present in the moment of that conversation. And if you do that, I think it almost demands that you stop the focus on the other things that are happening and just try and zero in on what that particular conversation is and where that person is coming from in the discussion. So when you are considering impactful questions, here are some really quick tips. Always listen for cues, explore and think broadly, frame your questions as who, what, where, when, and how, and try to avoid that dismissive why question. Even though it may seem like sometimes it's the right question to ask, just step back a little bit and think that there's a possibility that that question can put the person you're talking with on defense in a way that maybe that time for that feeling is not appropriate. So I hope you've had an opportunity to see how understanding people, putting yourself in their shoes, being empathetic and present can shift the dynamics of a conversation and create a more thoughtful and engaging relationship. So this morning, I've shared a couple techniques that as a coach, I've found to be incredibly valuable in helping my clients reach their own solutions. I believe that intentionally focusing on some of these same techniques can also move you toward a more engaging conversation in your job search process. No matter what situation you find yourself in, being authentic and asking impactful questions will certainly be an effective tool to enhance your skills, to enhance your life and your relationships. And they just might be another tool to help you land that next position. I'll leave you this morning with the quote that I showed earlier. The most basic of all human needs is the need to understand and to be understood. The best way to understand people is simply to listen to them.
Millree, again, what are the factors or variables that drive productivity?
Well, I think having a focus on, are you asking as an employee or as a client?
I would say from a client perspective.
So if I'm coaching, one of the big challenges always is to really hear what my client is looking for. And to try to, as we're talking, to try to figure out if there are any barriers that are actually getting in the way of my client moving forward. Sometimes those barriers, if they're there, are very clear. Sometimes it involves a little bit more digging and a little bit more pressing of the right kinds of questions. Mostly, once the person figures out him or herself what those barriers might be, then it's easier to identify them and either break them down or work around them to get to where you're trying to go. So Beth is saying that the examples are really helpful. Seeing how things play out helps us visualize how we would handle it. Great thought, Beth. Let's see. Randy, I like the concept of resisting the why, which is almost a reflex. Step back and make sure not to put the other person on defensive. There are other ways to eventually get certain information. Absolutely. Okay, let me see if I can just find one more. Priya, will asking impactful questions will asking impactful questions would help the candidate to go through the interview? Well, I think one of the things you want to do with impactful questions, and sometimes you can just sort of figure out some of these before you get into the interview. But I think if you just open yourself up to the process, what you're doing in asking impactful questions is you're doing several things actually. One thing that you're doing is you're demonstrating that you're totally focused on what that present conversation is all about. And sometimes when you're actually listening to the interviewer, you're able to give that interviewer something to think about that he or she may not have been thinking about before. Most often, at least in my experience, I found that interviewers typically are thinking, okay, it's a transactional conversation. It's what do I want to find out about Millree, and what does Millree want to find out based on the job description, and is there a match here? But I think you have an opportunity in interviews to elevate it a little bit higher and show the potential employer or show the interviewer that there's a whole lot more to you than just a candidate sitting there answering questions. And I think that's really the kind of situation you want to create, because then that conversation actually lives on beyond the actual interview. Because, you know, my history has been that, you know, employers come to these conversations with a list of questions. They're asking all the candidates the same thing. And if you can find a way to differentiate yourself, push the interviewer to think a little bit more deeply, a little bit more broadly about what they're really trying to accomplish, they actually can see you, they start seeing you in the position. And once they see you in the position, honest to goodness, that puts you way ahead of every other candidate, whether you're the first person interviewing or the last person interviewing. I just wish that some of the times when I was interviewing before, I would have thought about these things myself, because I was really one of those persons who was in that transactional conversation. And that transactional conversation, I really felt like I was competing quite well. But I believe that maybe had I gotten to the last, you know, to be one of the finalists, if I had created an opportunity for that supervisor or that interviewer to actually see me in that position, it would have given me a little bit more of a competitive edge. That could have been the difference, I don't know. But now I'm in a completely different place, and I feel much more of an opportunity to just share more of who I am rather than actually responding to the questions. So,
Millree, we've received several comments, commendations on the high quality of your videos and how it's helping many of our participants to understand the situations better. And certainly that's a good thing.
Oh, great. And by the way, I'd like to thank my wife for stepping in her thespian role to help me sort of illuminate some of these situations. So shout out to her. By the way, you have to do this to stay married, and I understand the business of that part. If you're feeling a little bit stuck today or frustrated, oh, so there are more questions. Let me see. Let's see, Calvin. When interviewing, I treat the potential employer as a potential client and try to show how I can solve problems. That's a very, very good point, Calvin. Millree, from Pam, how do you find clients for your coaching services? Well, you know, there are lots of different ways, Pam, but mostly it's these one-on-one conversations. When you can engage someone in a really important and powerful conversation, they actually get a chance to see you. For my purposes, if you just go to my website at willicop.com, you'll see a portal there that allows you to set up a time to have a chat with me about a potential relationship. I typically have space in my week to offer 30-minute interviews just to have those discussions and see if we have a match there. Um, let me see.
Okay, we have a question here, Millree. John states that he loves the concepts of authentic listening and impactful questions. Ultimately, he emphasizes you have to demonstrate that you can solve the company's problems.
Yes.
Give us a coast-to-coast example where you work in addressing the company's problem.
Well, I think if you're in the interview process, the potential employer has already determined that you have the basic skills to solve the problem. The question then, more often than not, is are you a good fit, and how you respond to the questions and the discussion. So my guess is that a person wouldn't be applying for a job that they didn't think they could actually do the work. I think the larger question is what's hidden in the discussion that you can sort of bring to the surface that then gives you an opportunity to show your true value to the organization. Okay. Does that answer your question?
All right. Okay. What do you suggest to prepare your mindset before an interview, which sometimes is invisible? An interview, perhaps during a social situation, what we call an informal interview opportunity.
I think, at least in my experience, before you approach any of those opportunities, you just open yourself, at least in my experience, you open yourself up to the possibilities. Every conversation has the potential to lead to a job interview. Every situation has an opportunity for you to create a relationship that may pay off down the road. Sometimes you'll find yourself in situations where you are talking with somebody who may be working for a company that you're really interested in learning more about and maybe even joining. When those opportunities pop up, just be more inquisitive about the position, be more inquisitive about the organization, what that person really feels, how that person feels working there. Find subtle ways to show that you're doing the kinds of things that would make you a great fit in that organization. And just try to be as authentic as possible and just see every one of these conversations, no matter where they are, as an opportunity to show a little bit of you, as well as being empathetic.
At this point, I'll open up the floor so that participants can unmute themselves and ask questions directly to Millree. So you're welcome to do so, folks. Okay. In the meantime, there's another question from the chat. How do you communicate expertise when the majority of your training has been on the job training?
Sometimes that's a challenge. I think, at least in my experience, one of the best ways to do that is to have a conversation about scenarios where you have actually seen a challenge and problem solved around that challenge.
Okay.
Hi, I have one question.
Hi. Yes.
So, consider myself that I'm in a job and a boss is assigning me a job at that time. So as you mentioned that the active listening is very important.
Yes.
So in the boss side, what would be they expecting me that active listening is not only essential, that's not only enough. At the same time, they would be expecting something, how I have to communicate back, even though I'm technically skillful. So the way how we have to communicate with the boss, that they have to make them to feel that I would be accomplishing, and to make them to feel that confident enough with me. So how to do the communication with them, even though we are technically skillful. So the communication way only, I'm just asking based on the coaching techniques.
Okay, so help me make sure that I'm hearing your question the right way. So you're having a conversation with a boss and you want to communicate that you have the skills necessary for that boss to give you an opportunity. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, I think one of the best ways of doing that is to sort of share how you have solved similar problems in the past. To just have a really basic open conversation about what that supervisor or that boss is experiencing, and try to offer some potential solutions to that boss based on your own experience, either in the job or experiences that you've had before.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, a question. Are you saying that the impactful questions lead the interviewer to understand that you know how to analyze the problem and will eventually discover a strong solution?
I think when you ask impactful questions, what you're trying to do essentially is to demonstrate to the other person in that conversation that you really understand what they're asking, and that you're giving them an opportunity to think a little bit more deeply about the question and the situation themselves. Now, I think one of the most important things that happens is that you presume that you're already coming to the position and to the discussion with a certain set of skills that have already placed you in that situation. And you're going to be in competition with lots of other folks who have similar skills and similar backgrounds. Again, what typically happens is that the person is looking for the value add that you bring. And I think one of the things that you bring as a value add is to show that supervisor that or interviewer that you're thinking, that you have the basic skill set, but you're thinking beyond that. And I think that's really the value that organizations are looking for. They can find people who basically check the boxes. The question is, what are the boxes that you don't see that you can actually check? And that's the thing that I think that employers, interviewers, HR folks are looking for. What does this person bring to the situation that goes beyond just the boxes that we've checked in the job description? So Sally, what are suggestions for an introvert in networking? And when people change their industry of work, where they have age, but not the experience, what is your suggestion to handle that kind of situation? Okay, so first of all, let me tell you, Sally, that I personally check all those boxes. So let me just get back to you. Let me just get back to your question. Okay, so first of all, as an introvert, so a lot of people might not believe this, but I'm probably about 49% introvert. When I get into a situation, it's so easy for me to just zero in on one person rather than working a room. But when I'm really focused on what I'm trying to do, I create a point of view before I get there. I think about what I'm trying to accomplish. And it's almost in some ways like putting on a little bit of a character that I have to use to maneuver in a conversation that might make me uncomfortable. And when I haven't had the personal experience of looking for a position outside of my area of expertise or outside of my industry, but I think if that's a pursuit that you want to follow, I suggest that you really think about what are the essential skills that will be required in that new industry. And do you have those? And if you have those, then there are ways for you to maneuver so that you can create a match between the skills that you have and the experiences that you have with a new industry, even though you may not have formal, butt in seat experience. And let me just get to the age part. So my experience has been that people really don't want to talk about age. But I think when you get to a certain point in your life, like I am, age is really a factor. I mean, if you are out there looking for a job or looking for a new position or looking to change positions, employers are always looking at where do I get the biggest bang for the buck? And more often than not, that falls on young people. They get a young person who's going to be paid less. They probably presume that on some way that a person is going to stay in the job for a year or so, and then they're going to move on to something else. That's typically what a lot of young people do. People who are in my age group, my age demographic, for example, typically cost a little bit more. We need a little bit more from the organization, and we're expecting a little bit more in response. And sometimes, at least in my experience, sometimes employers just don't want to take that on when they feel like they can get 2 Millrees for the price of 1. That's a huge challenge. And you know, I firmly believe that there've been a couple interviews that I was in where I may have lost the position because they did an evaluation of, well, there's a younger, less experienced, maybe less talented Millree out there that we can grow into the position and maybe spend a little bit less money in their salary.
Okay, Inger, you can go ahead and talk directly to our fantastic presenter.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Thank you. Yes. I was intrigued by what you mentioned, that in the interview, if I am invited to come, that means I am already shortlisted. It's just that the company or the interviewer wanted to see how I can fit into that position. Now, what do you suggest I consider during the interview to make a point so that the interviewer can see my ability as a manager? It's not just a problem solver for a particular thing. It's just not just based on the skill. I personally feel with my background, I can solve any problem. It's more of the mind of the person. How do I get that across when they are thinking from looking for somebody who can be a problem solver in particular things?
So that's a good question. I've got just a couple of responses to it. First of all, I would, at least in my experience, I wouldn't presume that I've been shortlisted just because I've met the basic qualifications. I believe that often folks are looking for folks who check the basic boxes, and then they want to set up an opportunity to just have a screening conversation with them. The next thought is, when you enter into an interview situation, also know that you're trying to find out from them if that's the best fit for you. So you are interviewing them as well. And I think you should, at least in my experience, you know, you should be posing questions to them that let them know that, hey, I've got these great skills, but I'm not sure if this is the right fit for me as well. So I think that's an important point of view to have when you go into an interview, because the salary may be great, the organization might sound good, but you really want to know what is it going to actually be like for you every day in that office. Is that a fit for you? So that's a really important part. And help me remember the last part of the question.
No, that will be it. Because from my point of view, when I come in to an interview, exactly what you just said. This is a balanced thing.
Yes.
Both sides actually looking to fit with each other. But my point is that how do I project the ability of a person who can handle any issues or any challenges, simply because we are a person of expansion.
So I think one of the most important things I would do is try to demonstrate in the discussion examples where you can show situations that you would expect to arise in that position and how you would go about addressing them. But the other thing is, you know, people don't talk about this enough, but my experience has been that people are actually, especially if you're a manager, they're looking at your ability to manage people. What are your interpersonal skills? What are the kinds of things that you are capable of that will bring a group together and move that group toward a common goal? And I think that's the value add that you don't really find in these job descriptions. It's the value add that employers are always looking for. They just never really ask. They're trying to discern that in their conversation with you. Are you a motivator of people? Do you have experience getting crazy people who are cats all running in different directions to get together in one group and move forward to a common objective? One of the experiences I think one of the benchmarks of my leadership in my past organizations is creating a group dynamic where everybody feels plugged into the common goal. And sometimes that kind of thing happens outside of the office. It could be, I don't know if people are still doing happy hours, but you know, I would always take my team out for a happy hour once or twice, you know, a month. And it would just be like after work, and we would just get together and make sure that we're all thinking about the same things and, you know, trying to, I guess, be as emotionally intelligent as I can so that I can understand what they're struggling with in their work. And I have found that when that happens and when you use that as a focus, particularly as a manager, you end up with a team that has a feeling of esprit de corps. They have a sense of camaraderie, and you really understand how everybody is plugged into the mission of your office. And I think creating and then engaging in situations like that and having the experience to share that kind of thing in an interview brings additional value that employers don't typically ask about, but they're always looking for it. Does that answer your question?
Thank you very much. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thanks for asking that. It's a really important question.
All right, Stephen, go ahead, sir.
Sorry, I had to unmute. So I really have found a couple of things about this real helped to really shift it. One was the concept of consciously going into these events with your mindset or your persona or whatever it is thought out and purposefully prepared.
Yes.
And I think the other notion that I found really strong was thinking about the questions that you ask as impactful versus thinking of them as a way to prove how smart you are, or to sort of demonstrate your skills, or the other things that you sort of think about is, well, I want to ask a smart question here, but thinking of that as impactful and as drawn off of the listing is really powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. It is really important to, I think, when you go into an interview and you know that you're interviewing them as well. See, here's part of the default. Employers, in my experience again, employers typically think, am I going to hire this person? They're not really thinking, is this person going to hire me? I think that's a huge mindset that helps to shift the conversation. And so you want to sort of level the playing field here. And so when you go in and you're thinking about, am I a great fit for this organization? Even if if all the boxes got checked, do I really want to work here? And is it possible that I may decide they want me, but I don't necessarily want them? I don't think it's a great personal fit. When you have that sort of mindset, and I know it's a challenging one, especially when we're all out here, we're all out here looking for jobs. It's a challenge, but you do want to find a great fit for yourself. And I think when you start with that mindset, and obviously you have the skills, it helps you to create the sort of impactful questions that help sort of delineate, where those lines of interest might be, where commonalities might exist, and where we can really dig in and look at fit. And I think that's a very, very important point of view to have when you're going in. You don't want to go into a job interview, at least I have to continue saying my experience. In my experience, I don't want to go into a job interview feeling like, oh my goodness, if they just gave me this job, that'll be great. I want to know, am I a perfect fit? And I think that's going to demand my attentiveness to the conversation, my pushing a little bit more on the impactful questions, just to see how that employer responds, so that I know that there's a good relationship, a good potential relationship there. Because the last thing you want to do is find a job, it's a great salary, 6 months in, all of a sudden, you don't like it, they don't really like you, you're working with the team, and the team is acting all crazy, and all of a sudden you're stuck in a position and you don't really know how to get out of it, but you're in for the money. So, you know, I know we're all in these challenging times where, you know, obviously salary is really important, but I think fit ultimately is more important. You want to feel rewarded, you want to feel valued, you want to feel like you're contributing and that you're being recognized in some way or another for your contribution. And I think all of that goes into your thinking as you go into the interview. And I think if you have that sort of mindset, or you practice that sort of mindset, you will end up asking impactful questions as you listen to the interview. Does that make sense?
Millree, you're on point, friend. One of the key emphasis that we place with the 40+ approach to interviewing is developing a set of questions based upon the duties and responsibilities of the position and the culture and history of the organization. And again, the point is you are also interviewing the company. It's not simply they interviewing you. And taking it a step further, sort of like a tailor who is measuring a person, okay, for a suit. So you need that fine. You need to measure for that good fit. So good points, Inger, Stephen, and of course Millree. All right, Benita, ask your question, ma'am.
Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Good morning and thank you. Millree, here's a question I have. How can we put ourselves in other people's shoes? Like, what are some ways to do that? What I've discovered during this pandemic is that empathy is something I sorely lack and really need to work on.
Well, that's a challenge, and we're all finding ourselves in this unusual situation that ordinarily we would be face to face. We'd be walking up and down the hallways with people. Now we have this sort of separation between us and the person that we're connecting with. I think having series of conversations with folks to just, you know, not have them transactional, just figuring out what kind of person it is and, you know, how they're walking in their lives, and having them to understand how you're walking in your life, I believe helps to sort of build that sort of emotional intelligence, that sort of the ability to be empathetic to what a person is going through, because so much of what people are going through has less to do with what they're saying and more to do with what their, you know, what their experiences are. And all of those experiences drive the conversations that you're having with them. It's tough. I mean, this is an unusual situation that we all find ourselves in this year, and we're all sort of pivoting to figure out how to make this pandemic situation, this life on Zoom, actually work. It's not easy.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, hello, Millree. I just wanted to just agree with your comment you had mentioned before about the cultural fit, and I totally agree. And inclusion is a basic need. It's really important that you're a good fit into the organization.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on it. I didn't have a question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's really important. And let me just say that this is not an easy, it's not an easy thing to do. It's a skill and a perspective that you have to really practice, because, you know, when we're out there looking for a job, first of all, we're looking for who wants me. How can I make this connection so that I can impress the person who wants me? And I can almost say with quite a bit of confidence that interviewers generally come to the situation thinking, if I want him, it's a done deal. And I think when you practice that mindset that I may or may not want this job, it looks good on paper, but how is it going to really feel when I'm in the hallways, when I'm in the office, when I'm sitting in my job, when I'm sitting in my evaluation, and, you know, I've checked the boxes of my job description, but I've got a knucklehead boss, and he or she has other priorities, right? They're trying to save the money company, so they're cutting you back on your merit increase, and you're not loving that. All right. So, you know, try to figure out what is the culture of the organization, try to figure out, do I fit in there?
Yeah.
And
also the environment as well.
And absolutely. And, you know, if you don't, and I think one of the things that LinkedIn offers is an opportunity to find other people who are in the organization, to try to make a connection with them and say, hey, look, I'm really interested in your organization, and tell me how you feel about it. Tell me how you feel about your job. Do you like your boss? I mean, you know, just all those kinds of things help to give you some intel in advance of the interview. And I think it requires quite a bit of work to prepare, but I think part of that preparation helps create the mindset that you want to have. You're way more knowledgeable. It's not just a phone call that says, hey, we want to interview you at 10 o'clock on Friday. You go back and you look at the job description, you say, okay, I want this job. Or, you know, it looks good on paper, or I like the salary, or, you know, I need to have a job. I haven't had a full-time job in 3 months. I've been out here searching and I'm frustrated. But you really want to see if you can get to the place where you really feel like it's a good fit. Because if it's not a good fit, the salary, you know, may be good. It's like an immediate gratification, but honest to goodness, down the road, you're going to be pissed.
Yeah, and you're not going to be.
And when you're pissed, then you are reacting in the job. And before you know it, the fit's not so good anymore.
Right.
So it's a challenge, but I think creating that mindset takes you to the interview where you can ask the right kinds of questions that say, hey, I may or may not like this. Let me see how you're doing.
Mm-hmm. And I've used other tools in the past, like Indeed and Glassdoor, and also Febs and Best Places to Work. .org, and those were very good tools to use.
Yeah, let me just say a couple things. First of all, I am not a job search expert. I just have my own set of experiences, and I think that I've got enough experiences on both sides of the aisle. I mean, I've interviewed people to fill my teams, and I've also interviewed for jobs. I think the value that you have here is that you have 40 plus. 40 plus can guide you along that process. They offer you a number of resources. They can direct you. I think I heard Jeffrey mention the course that they offer. It sounds like it's a fantastic course to get you in and skilled with the right point of view, and to avail yourself of some of these various tools that are out there. I didn't have that benefit when I was looking for a job. I wasn't aware of 40 plus DC. But now you have that benefit, and they continue to bring programming like this to you and to others.
All right, so Millree, tell us again about your contact information.
Yes, so if you're feeling a little bit stuck today, my address is willicopconsulting@gmail.com. It's on the screen. And I'm going to ask Gaddafi and the production folks to write these in the chat for you. And also a special thanks to Gaddafi and all the folks at 40 Plus for all their work in the background and as well as on the air, making this technology work. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks to 40 Plus for inviting me, and thank you all so much for letting me be a part of your morning.